Resources Commission, and I am calling this public meeting to order at 7 p.m. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order of March 12, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the meeting, the public may access this call through video conferencing or telephone. Following the presentation by the petitioner and questions from the commission, members of the public will have the opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment. Please identify yourself with name and address for the record. You can also raise your hand from your phone by dialing *9. Off with the exception of the commissioners, Delia, and the current petitioner. Once the commission has acted on the N application, the petitioner is free to leave the meeting. Screen sharing will not be permitted unless absolutely necessary, and all votes will be taken by roll call vote. In the event of any technical difficulties, all matters on the agenda that have not been heard will automatically be continued to the March 3rd meeting. This meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on the Minuteman Media website. If anyone is recording the meeting, I ask you to so inform the commission. At this time, I ask the commissioners to introduce themselves. Greg?
Greg Higgins.
Nick?
Nick Pappas.
Judy?
Judy Zombrecker.
And Sarah?
Sarah Grimwood.
Thank you, guys. I think we've got one set of meeting minutes, January 20th, 2021. I had sent in just a kind of an observation on one of the meeting minute notes. Anybody else have any other comments on those?
No.
I sent in a couple of comments, minor ones.
Great.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Okay, let's take the vote. Nick?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Delia, what do you have for us for the director's report?
Okay, so I'm going to be very brief, but one thing that you should be aware of is the land trust just received a confirmation that the emerald ash borer has been reported in Concord. So this is a picture of the emerald ash borer and its typical D-shaped exit holes. It is a pretty bad pest on our native ash trees. Lady, the executive director at the Land Trust, observed this in the Upper Spencer Brook Valley on about a dozen trees. And also she put out an Instagram, and Middlesex School said, oh yeah, we have that too. So a little bit of a concern because likely, finding its way into Estabrook Woods. The state has released biocontrols of parasitoid wasp, actually 3 different species of parasitoid wasps, and the hope is that they will just get the population under control. The critical thing for us is to report any observations to us at Natural Resources and the state, but also not to move any ash firewood or any ash products as contained as possible. I'm going to show you a map of where it's located. Do you see this state map?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, so I'm gonna just go back and it's been found in, I think it's like, 169 communities in the state. So this is a map showing the locations of where it's been found in the years. The green is the 2012 and red is 2021. So you can see we're here, and it's been reported in all our surrounding communities except for Bedford. So it's not a surprise, it's just a bummer.
Yeah.
And we're putting out a news and notices tomorrow with instructions on how to report it, but just keep an eye out, especially in the sort of Estabrook Woods area, to see if you can observe it. The D-shaped holes are distinctive, as is dieback on the top of ash trees, and often you'll see that they have a lot of bark missing. Good thing is that woodpeckers love the larva, so they're hopefully helping us out on that control.
Question, Delia. If they're going to be releasing wasps, is there anything we can do to support them? They're often pollinators, and maybe there's some plantings we can do in the areas where the releases are happening.
I'll ask that question, Nick. I'm not sure. I just started researching it today, but definitely can look into that. And I'll let the commission know what I find out.
And as a follow-on deal, is the state going to work on that biocontrols? Will they be releasing?
They
those
have
wasps?
released, according to MDAR's website, they have released, they didn't give the locations, and I suspect it's in Western Mass, in the Berkshires, where they're finding a lot more incidences of it. But they said federal and state agencies have been releasing it, as well as for research purposes.
Thanks.
And as you know, I mean, they don't release any insects, any biocontrols until they've done a lot of vetting, you know, with the Galaricella beetles for loosestrife. I think it was 20 years before they did any releases on those. But this has been, you know, it's an Asian insect, has obviously no, you know, controls here, but it's more recent in the Northeast than it is in other parts of the country. The next thing, you'll recall that the commission issued a determination to the MBTA for the mechanical removal. That was appealed by MBTA. We received a superseding determination from DEP, which upheld your decision. So any mechanical removal of vegetation in the MBTA right-of-way will require a notice of intent. What we had put into the notice, and they had appealed that. The next thing that I wanted to let you know about is a really cool project. The Emerson Umbrella is not going to be doing the Earth Day parade this year again because of COVID. So instead, what they would like to do is a public art installation. They're going to do up to 7 installations, and 5 of those are proposed on conservation lands. 2 at Haywood Meadow here, 1 at Chamberlain Park here. They'll work with Jim White at the Millbrook Terry to place 1 here, and then 2 at the Millbrook Way. So 1 at the, you know, by the next to Concord Lumber, and then 1 in the little meadow behind Concord. The Land Trust Board is also very interested in hosting this, and so they may have a 7th installation on a land trust property.
Great, good idea.
I know, I think it's a great idea. And then the final thing, I'm just very excited to let you know that the trail guide that I've been working on with Richard Foreman and Trails Committee Chair Bob White is at the printers. So we should have that ready
Oh,
for
great.
publication very soon, within the next couple of weeks. So we'll have it for sale for $10 at the visitor center, which is currently open, and also at the town offices once we open back up to the public. So you'll be seeing a copy of that in the next few weeks. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 notice of intents that are being continued to the March 3rd meeting. Could I have a motion on those if somebody wants to take on all 4?
I make a motion to continue until the March 3rd meeting. DEP file number 137-1551, that's 160 Range Road. And DPE file number 137-1504, that's 43 Old Bedford Road. And as well as DEP file number 137-1545, that's 1400 Lowell Road. And then CWB file number 20-2, that's lot 2A, Cayuga Road.
Thanks, Greg.
Was it 20-2 or 20-1?
Oh, it's 20-1. Did I say 2? I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. He passed
I
it.
passed the test.
He won.
He had the tester.
Second,
Do we have a second? Nick?
Yeah.
Thank you. And the vote? Greg?
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Nick? Oh, and I am an aye as well. Okay, I think we have only 1 new application this evening. Looks like a tough one. Delia, are you going to be presenting tonight for this?
Yes, I will be
Okay.
presenting. So this is a project, oops, sorry, let me just pull up the screen here. This is a project that is a joint effort between Sudbury Valley trustees, abutter Richard Mandel, and the Natural Resources Division. You'll recall that Sudbury Valley trustees began doing some buckthorn and other invasives control near Gowing Swamp in 2016. Laura identified the largest infestation of porcelain berry that I've ever seen. It's a not a new invasive, but not one of our more common ones. For orientation, here we are. This is Old Bedford Road here. Miriam's Corner is down here. Here's the Burkeland, and Gowing Swamp is over in this location here. And the location of the porcelain berry is roughly delineated on this map here. So the largest sort of high density population is outlined in white here. And there are some other small occurrences noted in the application on with these little red dots. So what we're proposing to do is to work with land stewardship, who would cut and treat the porcelain berry as well as bittersweet, which is coming up and strangling all the trees. It would be a 2-year effort. And Joan Dealey from Land Stewardship Incorporated is here if there are questions on the application proposal. Essentially, this is a buffer zone project, and there are, let's see, within the buffers, so total work is 25,423 square feet. Within the buffer zone, it is 15,193 square feet, with the breakdowns of the work as follows: 1341 square feet in the 25, 4288 in the 50, and 9564 in the 100-foot buffer zone. Once land stewardship has completed their work, we intend to continue to monitor and control this population. It'll be one of the projects that the land manager will be working on, and also coordinating and working with volunteers to continue to pull and remove both the bittersweet and the porcelain berry. There is, in your thumbnail, there's a photograph. It's also on the cover of this application, showing this porcelain berry, which has a very grape-like leaf look to it, but it does a similar thing that bittersweet does, where it just climbs up the trees and really sort of is quite devastating. You can't see it under here, but there's an old historic stone wall that we intend to get, fully cleared of the invasives and be able to showcase that a little bit more. So the project goal is to protect the ecological integrity of Gowing Swamp, which, as you know, is a very unique ecosystem within town. It was written about by Thoreau. It hosts some unusual wetland species, including black spruce, some pitcher plants, orchids. It is rare species habitat, and we've sent the application to Heritage for their review and comment. I would expect that they would favorably review the application as they did with SVT's project in 2016. And any questions, happy to answer.
I'm just interested, the 2016 project, was that successful? Did that meet all your expectations?
It has been, so the buckthorn baggy approach was not as successful, I think, as it's really hard to cover every aspect of the plant. You have to do that in order for that to be successful. But there was some Japanese knotweed that was treated and controlled and has been reseeded, and that has been pretty successful. It's an ongoing effort.
I love that area. I walk it all the time, so really happy to see this.
Yeah, where does the any idea where the porcelain berry came from? How it got there?
I would expect that it was spread by birds.
Okay,
We do, I mean, we have little infestations here on the 141 Kaiser Road campus. And when I see them, it's very distinctive in the late summer because it has these multicolored blue, purple, red, pale, pink speckled berries. But I just see it popping up in areas that I haven't seen it before. And as I said, I think it's probably spread by birds. Joan, I don't know if you have any additional information on how it's spread.
Yes, I would say mostly birds. And it was introduced as an ornamental plant because the berries were very attractive.
Ah,
like so many other ones.
exactly. Yeah. Well, it looks like a great project. And as I understand, Delia, you got a grant for some of this work as well.
Yes, we got a $2,500 grant through the Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, which Concord is a member of. They receive about $6,000 annually from the River Stewardship Council for small grant proposals. I submitted an application in December and we received full funding for that. So we were pretty excited about that.
Yeah,
great.
fantastic. I don't think I don't have any further perspective necessarily. Great project, of course. So, when do you think you'll hear back from, the various groups, the National Heritage Group and whatnot, so you can, we can get you moving?
I would hope, optimistically, we'll hear from them by the March 3rd meeting.
Great.
We could keep this on the agenda for the March 3rd meeting.
Yeah.
That would be great, but they have 30 days to comment. So that's just under their 30-day timeframe. So it may not be until the March 17th meeting that we're able to, receive final approval.
Okay.
When would the work happen?
If we get the project permitted by then, we can start doing the cut stem work in March, towards the end of March.
Just curious.
And we can do that through April, but we would take a pause for sap season.
Great. Does anybody in the public have any comment on this? Okay, well, hearing none, I guess we'll continue it out and hopefully you'll get all the feedback by March 3rd and we can move it along. If not, we'll go to the 17th. Thank you, Delia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Okay, next up, we got a COC.
Excuse me. So that's a certificate of compliance for the work on the corner of Commonwealth and Lawsbrook that you'll recall from a few years ago, house reconstruction. And the site is stable, all the plantings are in and everything is doing well. So ready to recommend approval for that COC.
I make a motion to issue a COC for DEP file number 137-1297-169 Commonwealth Ave.
Nick seconded it. Great. We'll take the vote. Greg?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Thank you. Yep. Judy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Let's see, we have other business. Why don't we take care of the administrative approval first for Yoshida?
Okay, so 3 Norway maple saplings, 5-inch, 2.5-inch, and 2-inch DBH within the BVW and inner riparian zone. The homeowner would like to remove them as they're invasive species, and they're going to replant with 3 inkberry holly and 1 witch hazel, which will be
Sounds good.
an improvement.
Okay. We don't need a vote for that.
Get rid of the Norway maple, even if we don't get.
That's right.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
All right, never mind.
Net benefit.
We're trying to set a record here, Ed. I'll shut up.
I don't know. Keep it rolling, Greg. Keep it rolling. Okay, last order of business that I see is the continuing the discussion on any revisions to the 50-foot no build policy. I know Delia, you sent around a couple of suggested edits.
Mhm.
Um, I guess the only comment I would have I think the suggested edit in yellow is good. I would prior to that, where you strike previously,
Mhm.
it says the distance that existed between, I think it should say distance that exists between the existing structure and so on.
Yep.
I think it's just a hangover from your previous edit.
And I did see an email where we talked about, it was talked about commercial, et cetera. I suppose you habitate commercial, but would, if you said the primary structure,
Yes, I would say,
the primary structure, that might blanket cover just about every type of, I don't know.
yeah, I was talking, Greg, I think you're right. I was talking to,
Yeah, I was coming with dwelling at one point, Ed, but then of course,
commercial.
commercial. So,
Yeah.
but if you said the primary structure, therefore, if it was a detached garage, that wouldn't be primary.
Yeah.
And things like that. So you might be able to just get anything that's attached to the primary works, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I would be behind that. I was talking to a zoning attorney, just getting his quick little feedback on this too. And I had the same idea of primary, and he said you may want to choose principal because that's more in keeping with kind of
Legal.
zoning and real estate language, if you will.
Okay.
Same
Okay.
effect, I think, but.
Principal would be
just
fine.
that
That's
term.
the same diff as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I'm sure
So
legal-
we would make that in both where Delia just put it in and then down in the yellow?
Yes, portions
Okay.
of a principal structure.
Yeah.
Would it be principal existing structure, singular or plural? Singular.
Singular.
I think singular.
So should habitable come out then, since a commercial building is not considered a,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, that
That
works.
should be up on the first place where the red principal is, that should be structure singular.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, good pickup.
So just so I make sure I understand the last part, which then says any permitted expansion or structure shall be limited to 25% of the existing encroachment. So if I have a structure that's encroaching 50 square feet, I'm only allowed up to 25% of that. So that'd be what, 12 and a half square feet into the beyond what it is right now. Is that the correct interpretation?
I
that's
think that-
correct. And I don't,
Okay.
Good,
Yeah.
good, Delia, please.
I think that, we had talked about that at the last meeting about maybe putting in some language that was similar to what was in the Wetlands Protection Act in terms of numbers.
Mhm.
It does sort of two things. One, it allows somebody with a large incursion to have a larger encroachment.
Right.
It's based on that, relative number, but it also, I think it also seems to imply that you can have up to 25%. And I don't think that's what, I think that the whole policy speaks to, this is just a no touch, it's just a no builds.
Right.
Yeah.
2 years ago when we had a project, we realized that it would be helpful that in those very rare circumstances that incursion into the 50 would be permitted, that we had to have some sort of roadmap to allow that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Delia. I think when you start putting metrics in, people start working towards the metric
Right,
versus
exactly.
having it being just a rare exception to the rule and take it on a case by case basis.
But if you don't put in some sort of upper bound, if someone had a lot of land, they could potentially request quite a bit.
Right.
Just
So I
if
think
you don't
this
put
this
some kind
wording
of-
limits that, correct?
I mean, it may not be likely, but that's the way it is.
We're not required to permit it.
Right.
Right.
They can challenge it at that
Well,
point.
it's, I mean, you're making a good point, Nick, a very good point, actually. I mean, somebody theoretically could, be close to something and come in with a 10,000 square foot building in the right geometry, but that we're not required to permit it. But but the nearest point to use is of the principal structure. And then we say, that's ludicrous. That will damage the wetlands. Thanks for playing, but no, thanks. You lose. I don't think, I think the 25% rule will only favor somebody who's doing who has a large proposition already, and the person with a smaller proposition wouldn't even be able to, as Judy just showed, you wouldn't even be able to make a deck.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
think the way it's worded,
An area to use, so it seems to me, if you want to add something, Nick, you might be able to cobble together some language that says, the goal is to minimize something like that, the person.
yeah, I think what I would suggest is something along the lines of, the way it's worded now, someone could willingly interpret that to mean they're allowed to go up to 25%.
Yeah.
So that's not correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But you could add something to the sentence that said, I could wordsmith this a little bit, but in no event shall it ever exceed 25% of the existing encroachment.
Mhm.
So-
Mhm.
to
I
say that,
actually think 25%. I mean, I just threw that number in there, but I think that's too high anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we
Because,
could-
to your point, Greg, about a small, someone has a small project or, doesn't have much encroachment, I think that, just a little bit of leeway where you have like a little corner of a walk or something, they would be able to do that. But you're right, they couldn't do a big addition. And I was asking about the 25% to make sure I understood it. And I would be concerned about the large projects too.
Maybe something in there should, I don't know, you don't tend to speak about what the goal of something is. I guess you do it in a different format, as to what we're trying to get here. What are we trying to get here? How do we define what we're trying to do here? We're trying to allow people that already are in there to do like those little fill-in things that we've allowed.
Right.
people to do.
Right.
Mhm.
And so I do agree the 25% just speaks to that. We go to 50, and what does everybody do? They push the house right to 50.1 inch from the wetlands. I mean, it just leads them to make it as large as possible. So, we should have language in there that leads in the other direction, that this is an exception that has to be, that a substantial gain has to be made by the wetlands elsewhere on the site or something like that,
But isn't that the whole idea behind the 50-foot no build, and kind of, it's kind of stated throughout the language already. It's a rare exception. It's a high hurdle. It's,
Yeah,
you got to do this, this, and this, and then,
right.
it'll be considered perhaps. And
I
so
think part of the problem is we're focusing on a sentence here where there's a lot of other language in this policy
Mhm.
that says there are a lot of hurdles here. You've got to do all these alternatives, and, it's a lot you have to do to convince us.
yes.
I think the other thing, though, is that by saying, as the policy currently does, that you can't increase your encroachment distance,
Yeah. The
that
nonconformity,
puts
if you will.
a pretty big limit
Mhm.
on any expansion. And I just worry that having language about, and definitely, Nick, wordsmith it so we can take a look at what you think might work. But, we see people come in and propose things based on how they think they can build up to. And I think we just need to be really careful of that, because
Yeah, okay, I'll
Yeah.
look at it and I'll see how it plays with the rest of it, the whole.
Yeah,
policy.
again, I just worry about specific metrics because it starts to look like zoning a little bit. And
That's the problem. I learned long ago that once you write down any limitations, you're just creating a game for someone to play.
is that, yeah, I think that's right. And Delia, the other, I think you also would put some other language in down below on the 25 and the 50.
right. So that was just clarifying that, when somebody mitigates, it has to be within the 50-foot no build. I think we had just understood that. I think it's important to capture it. So that's
Mhm.
first read. And then to, if we want to encourage restoration of the 25 and prioritize that over mitigation in the 50, then give an incentive to reducing that to, I put in 5-1, but it could be 7-1, or it could be whatever ratio you think is appropriate. But the mitigation ratio should be less as you get closer to the wetland resource area, because there's more of a benefit, I think.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we can
Incentive.
start with 5 and see how it goes over the years. You can always change it.
And this would not permit using mitigation outside of the 50-foot no build zone, correct?
Right, so the expectation would still be that outside of the 50-foot, applicants are expected to mitigate at a 1-to-1.
Right, but you couldn't say, I want to build in this 50-foot. I don't have enough space left over for 10 times the greater the area. Therefore, I do a 50-to-1 outside the 50-foot. So it either has to be in the 25 to 50-foot, 10-to-1, or whatever number we determine for the 25, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
That makes sense. It's a good point.
But all mitigation has to be within the buffer zone.
Correct.
When you say outside the 50, we mean from 50 to 100.
To 100.
But I read this maybe incorrectly, that talks about the 10-to-1 mitigation for something that's within the 50-foot no build zone has to be within the 50-foot no build zone.
That's right.
So if I'm building something within the 50-foot no build zone, say 5 square feet, then I need to come up with 50 square feet in the 25 to 50 for mitigation, not the 50 to 100.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But would they be able to drop into the 25 and choose that method
Hmm.
to entice them to do that? Isn't that what you, so,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it would be
or that too.
Yeah, or,
Yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah.
Or some combination thereof.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and people, commissioners feel good about the 5-to-1 as a starting point. And, as Nick noted, we can always change if that, if people are flocking to that because or we don't feel there's enough benefit at that point, but we can always change it in the future, perhaps.
Right.
Okay.
It's a minimum. I mean, they might, in order to get permitted, they might do 10-to-1 in the 25 to get permitted. I mean, we can work that out with people as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Delia, going back to the changes higher up when you picked 25%, was that based on any previous experience? I'm just wondering if is there a way of looking back at where this has happened in the last year and what sort of percentages were we looking at?
We have been keeping track of projects that have been permitted within the 50.
Mm-hmm.
And we can certainly take a look at that and draw up a table of what the incursion was versus what the existing structure is within the 50. And we can certainly do that and get that to you for the next meeting.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's only ever 10%, then why not just put it at 10%? Or I'm just wondering if we can justify the 25, given that we're
I don't know
thinking that
why I
people might
picked-
push to it.
Yeah, I don't know why I picked 25.
But I think we're discussing though, maybe not having this particular
Yeah.
sentence in at this
Right.
juncture.
Because we don't need it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It's
You
just
know,
Okay.
these people on the number and they're gonna make it max and we.
Yeah.
Our hands are
I agree.
tied. We
Now,
can't.
Let me work a little bit on wordsmithing it and figures within the context of the whole policy. And then if we think it should still be in there after that, then you can do research.
Yeah, good point, Nick.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think I had suggested looking at that last meeting because there was a concern raised about, someone has a very large structure, just really, railroading a big addition or trying to do that. And that's why I had suggested that if it doesn't work, then, then we should take it out. But I was thinking about how to address that concern that had come up.
Mm-hmm.
And the only place that it's actually addressed that way in the wetlands regs is in the riverfront.
Right.
And that's basically acknowledging, and that's just for redevelopment.
Mm-hmm.
But that's acknowledging that, that was a later provision in the Wetlands Protection Act that was put in 1996. That there are these incursions already, which is similar to what we're dealing with the 50, but it is not by right, but it is, because it's not discretionary, for the commission to say yes or no. It's basically
Okay.
at 10% or 5,000 square feet, you meet the performance standard.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, work within BVW itself, the commission is allowed under the law to authorize up to 5,000 square feet of fill max before it goes to the state for a variance. But it's discretionary. You don't have to allow it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that makes me lean a little bit more towards just not including that upper limit. But I understand, Nick, what you're saying, and I'm interested to see what, language you want to propose, and, we can go from there.
And I guess the only other thing I would just throw on the table, not for any specific consideration now, but Delia, remind me, how long has the policy been kicking around? Has it been a decade or?
It's been since 1994.
Wow.
Okay, so just one thought to, just think about maybe on the back burner, but do we want to start to think about moving this policy into a regulation in due time? It seems like it's been reasonably successful. Seems like, at least based on Delia's experience, I have limited experience on the commission here, but it seems like it's been pretty well regarded. People have been fairly, respectful. At least that's what I've seen through my short tenure here. And, perhaps it might be time to consider that from policy to regulation, in the reasonable near future, whatever that might mean.
Does that mean it becomes a bylaw? What does that mean?
It would mean that it is folded into the current wetlands bylaw.
Right.
So it has to go to, it would have to go to town meeting for.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, maybe it's not an undertaking in COVID, but perhaps post that, it might be a thought to try to push that a little further.
That race is always a high hurdle race, let me just say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
just thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
You may end up, if you fall on that, then does your policy fall? That's,
Yeah. No, it's a good point, Greg. And I think like any kind of effort here, you'd have to, kind of socialize it and see if it has some, takers out there and it can build some momentum or not.
right.
Understand.
I agree.
Okay. Again, food for thought. That's all.
Exactly.
Okay. So Nick, appreciate you taking a shot at the wordsmithing. We'll continue this on to next meeting. Anyone else, any other thoughts from the commission here on this? I know we have a limited audience. Any thoughts from the public on it? Just by way of okay. Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn?
second.
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. And we'll take the vote. Nick,
All right.
Greg,
Aye.
Judy,
Hi.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I am an I as well. And we failed to beat Greg's record.
Yeah, well,
48 minutes.
You notice how he kept talking?
Maybe it's because Greg was here.
Hanging on to the mantle.
That's right.
see you all soon.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Take
Okay.
care. Bye.